Hey everyone, welcome back to English Lessons with Guneet. In today's video, we're going to do the poem A Considerable Speck by Robert Frost. So, before we start the poem, let us have a look at the title only, which is a literal device in itself, which is having a literal device in it. Over here, if we talk about the title, that is A Considerable Speck, so it is an oxymoron. Now, what is an oxymoron? An oxymoron is a literal device which is having two words which are having opposite meaning to each other, yet they are being used together. So over here also, if we talk about considerable means something which is very significant, and speck means something which a very tiny thing, and in tiny thing it is like not of any use, or it is not noticeable, what we say according to the word speck. That's something, a very tiny thing which is not noticeable at all. Now considerable means something very insignificant, and speck means something which is unnoticeable. So how can something that is significant be unnoticeable, or how can something be which is not noticeable can be significant? So this title itself is an oxymoron. I hope that you're clear with it. Then we have, let's start with the poem only. A speck that would have been beneath my sight on any but a paper so white, set off across what I had written there. Now over here, now in these lines the poet is saying that a speck which would have, like, normally it would have been beneath my sight because it's such a tiny thing, I would not have noticed it, but why I am noticing it, he is giving one of the reasons, that is a paper so white means the paper is very bright, that is why I'm able to see it. Now this is the first thing that why he noticed us. Moreover, we can also say the clean observation that is there of the poet, that is why we are also he's also able to see the speck on the paper so white. Then we have set off across what I had written there. Set off across means that it just started running. So the speck, it had just started running on whatever the writer had written over there. So in the ancient times when this poem was written, at those times the pens which were used by the writers, they used to be like the ink pens, which would take like a very long period of time to dry. So over here, whatever the writer had just written, so the speck is just starting moving over it, so the ink also, it just spread over all over the place, as you can say that the ink, it just traced the path as the speck was moving wherever it was moving, as the speck set off across what he had written. Now the ink pens can be compared to nowadays the gel pens which we are having. Like after writing the gel pens, immediately after it, if we just like move our finger over whatever we have written, the ink just smudges all over the place. So similarly at those times, some like ink pens used to be there, and they like used to take a long time to dry. So over here also, that is only what is happening. Now let's see the next line. And I had idly posed my pen in air. Now the meaning of idly is that without any purpose, like we can say, and poised means that he had just raised his pen in the air. And for what purpose had he done this? He had done this to stop it with a period of ink. Means he had done so with a period of ink, to stop it with a period of ink. This line means that he was going to put a full stop over there, like this, as we all know, full stop. So that is why he had just raised his pen in the air. When something strange about it made me think, this was no dust speck by my breathing blown. Now, as a piece of speck that we can say, he just thought that's any speck, a tiny thing which is not to be noticed. But when he just really saw that how it was moving over the ink and how it sent across the ink on the paper or whatever he had written, so he just got an idea that it is not just any normal speck, but it is something else beyond whatever he is thinking. Then, but mistakenly by a living mite. Now he just gets to know that it is not a normal, just a dust speck, means it's not just a tiny thing like a dust, but it is what it is. It is a living mite. With inclinations, it could call its own. So over here, the meaning of inclination is the feelings, and of it could call its own means it had feelings of its own. Like if we talk about a little mite, we usually think that what can even this little mite think of, because it's such a tiny creature. who is having such small size. So how can such a being have feelings of its own? How can such a being think of something like feelings? But over here the writer, he's saying that the mite is having feelings of its own. It paused as with suspicion of my pen. Now over here we can see the survival instincts that the mite is having. Over here the poet, he is saying that the mite, it was pausing with the suspicion of his pen. So suspicion of my pen means that so basically, as the poet was moving his pen, the movements of the pen only we can say. So with the movements of the pen, the mite had paused. So with the suspicion of the pen, as the mite, he suspected that something was over him. So he could feel this thing, that something is over him. So even he had survival instincts. He was having this fear in his mind, the mite, that he could get any harm from the pen. That is why even he was having this suspicion inside him. So he just paused with the suspicion of the pen, and then came racing wildly on again to where my manuscript was not yet dry. First we had talked about how he was just on the paper, and then how he had set across whatever the poet had written, and after that once again the mite had started to move here and there, and now it had paused with the suspicion of the pen of the poet. And now the other action over here is that the mite just, it came racing widely again where the manuscript means whatever the poet had written by his hands, and that part which was not dry yet, as I had told you before how the pens were at those times. So the manuscript was not yet dry over there, and in that area only where the manuscript was not yet dry, the mite just came wildly racing over that area once again. Now once again the mite has paused again and either drank or smelt. Means now all these actions that are coming, you can see the mite, it is pausing at some moment, then it is just moving, it is doing one action and the other action. So you need to know what is the series of actions. I would say that this thing can even come in the form of MCQs, like the series question they usually give, or even if we talk about the normal questions that we are getting, even over there they can ask us one such question, that what did the poet observe about the movements of the mite. Such question can come. So we need to know the series of events, that how it was happening in the poem, and also about all the actions that the mite did. So kindly note all these very importantly. Then once again it just paused again, and now the what did he drank or smelled? The ink only that was there on the paper, obviously. So the mite had just either drank or it smelt, means it just smelled or drank the ink that was there. With loathing, for again it turned to fly. The meaning of loathing is disliked. So now after drinking or smelling the ink, the mite would not have liked it. So that is why with loathing the poet has written, for again it turned to fly. If it would have liked it, it might have been, it would kept on drinking the ink that is there. But what the mite did was that as he did not like it, so he again turned to fly. He was again ready to fly. Plainly with intelligence I did. Now the poet, he is saying that he was admiring the intelligence of the mite. Now how can the poet say that even a tiny mite, how can even he have his own intelligence? This is the question that comes in the mind of many students, that why is the poet even thinking such a thing? So the reason why poet is having this thing is because the poet has observed carefully. He is in the poem at the moment, he was observing properly and very carefully the movements of the mite. That is why how it was pausing, how he was having survival instincts, how he drank or smelled, how he was having his own choices, and all these things, how he was moving. So all these things show us how the mite was having its intelligence of its own, that it was having its minds of its own. That is why it was able to make such choices. This is the reason why the poet said, plainly with intelligence I dealt. It seemed too tiny to have room for feet. Now room means space, so the poet, he's saying that the mite was so small, it was so tiny, that it seemed that it cannot have space for even feet, because even if you want to have feet, there needs to be some space from on your body from where you can have feet. But he's saying that the size of it is so small that how can it even have feet, yet must have had a set of them complete. He's saying, but it just seems like that he's not having. But on the other hand, if he's doing all these movements with intelligence of its own, so it must be having a set of legs with which it is moving, set of feet with which it is moving from one place to another, to express how much it did not want to die. Now the poet has also given his own reason what he feels like. Now the mite was expressing how much it did not want to die by doing all the movements on the paper as it was going from one place to another on the paper, drinking and smelling, and the mite could even feel the suspicion of the pen. So all these movements and the actions that the mite was doing, it showed that it was obviously having intelligence of its own, mind of its own. And as he did the movements, so we also get to know of the survival instincts that the mite is having. And at the same time we can also say that he did not want to die, as the mite would be doing all these movements just so as to survive. It ran with terror and with cunning crept. So how did the mite run? It ran with terror and cunning crept. Means it just ran from one place to another because it was having terror, as I already told you, that because of the survival instincts and the fear of death that the mite was having, that is why it ran with terror that it might get killed by the poet. This is the fear that the might be having. And with cunning crept, so the meaning of cunning is like cleverly, and crept, it just basically means how it just runs out of fear. So cunning crept means that it just runs out of fear from one place to the other. It faltered, I could see it hesitate. Faltered, the meaning of faltered is it just stumbled over something. So the poet is saying that I could see that the mite, it was stuck by something and it could see it getting hesitated. Then in the middle of the open sheet, cowered down in desperation to accept whatever I accorded it of fate. Now after all the movements that the mite had already done, now in the middle of the open sheet, this question can be asked in the MCQ, that at which place of the paper, or like at what place normally they can ask, that did the mite just accept his fate. So it was in the middle of the open sheet, means the paper on which the poet was to be writing whatever he might be writing. So at the middle of that open sheet, the mite, it just cowered down. The meaning of cower down is to crouch down in fear. Now in desperation, this whole line only means cower down means to crouch down, and in desperation to accept, this whole line means that it just crouched down in fear, in a desperation to accept whatever I accorded it of faith. Now the what this line means, that whatever I accorded it of faith, this means that whatever the owner wants to do. Over here, now the mite, it has finally accepted its fate, that whatever the owner, means the larger creature that is there, obviously the poet, he would be like much larger, much greater in size as compared to the mite. So in the middle of the open sheet, the mite that is there, it just crouched down in desperation to accept whatever was in his faith according to the poet. He just tried all of his survival instincts, but now he just leaves everything to the poet, that whatever he wants to do with me, whatever is in my faith, the owner can do with me. I have none of the tenderer than thou. The meaning of thou is you. So now the poet is basically saying the meaning of, I'll tell you first, of tenderer than thou. So tenderer than thou means something like I do not have a more delicate or more loving opinion than you. This is the basic meaning of the whole line that is there. Now the poet is just basically saying I do not have a more loving or a delicate opinion than you. Now which opinion he is talking about, we'll get to know in the next line, which is collectivistic regimenting love. I would say this is like one of the most important paragraphs, and most of the teachers also in all of your schools, they would also have told the same thing, that this is like one of the most important paragraphs because it is having very deep meaning, which is very important to understand. Now I'll explain you this line word by word. If we first of all talk about collectivistic, so the meaning of collectivistic is, something related to the community only. So there is like a belief, we can say, in which a group of individuals as a whole is more important than an individual itself. In basic words, if we say, it is just that as a group we are given, like the group is given more importance than an individual person. So at the time when this poem was written, the political view was this only, that a group should be given more importance than an individual person. So this political view was known as communalism, we can say. Now the next word is regimenting. The meaning of regimenting is something which is imposed by the authority or by the state. That is the basic meaning of regimenting. And the meaning of love we all know. So if all together we see, the meaning of the line is this only, that the kind of love for the community which is being imposed on the individuals. So the poet is saying that I do not believe in such an opinion, means the poet maybe is not believing in communalism. This is only what he means to say, that I do not believe in such beliefs with which the modern world is being swept. The meaning of swept is like being highly affected. So over here the poet is just basically saying that with this belief, that is collectivistic regimenting love, the modern world is being swept, means the modern world is being highly effective by this belief. Like many people are believing it and they are getting highly effective by it. But this poor microscopic item now. But now he's saying that if we talk about all those, like how the people they are having so much love for the community, how it is being imposed on them. But he's saying that amongst all this, what is the mistake of this poor microscopic item right now, which is beneath my sight on the sheet of paper that is so white? Since it was nothing I knew evil of, I let it lie there till I hope it slept. Now over here the poet is just basically saying that he knew nothing bad or something, he did not know anything evil about the mite, so he decided not to kill it. Because if he did not have any bad relations, or we can say he did not know any evil or bad thing about it, so why should, without any reason, he kill the mite? So he just says that I did not kill it as I did not know anything evil of it, so I let it lie there till I hope it slept. Means I just let the mite lie over there where it was there till it just slept. I hope that it sleeps, so I'll just keep it over there only till he sleeps. I won't kill it. I have a mind myself and recognize mind when I meet with it in any guise. Now the meaning of guise over here is in any form, we can say. Then the poet is saying that I have a mind of myself as a human, I am having a mind of myself and recognize mind when I meet with it in any guise. And he is saying that I recognize whenever I am he just, first of all, if we understand the basic meaning, I'll tell you that he is saying that I'm having a mind, so I'm having my own intelligence, and I can also recognize intelligence when I meet it in any form. I can recognize the intelligence. So now he is referring to the mite over here, that even the mite is having a mind of its own, and till the end only we'll get to know that how he is saying that it is having a mind of its own. He has also stated many times in the poem, but yet I'll also tell you at the end of the poem once again. So he is just saying that I can recognize the mind, I can recognize the intelligence no matter in whatever form I meet it, because I am also having a mind of my own. No one can know how glad I am to find on any sheet the least display of mine. He's saying that nobody can even imagine how much glad, how much happy I am to find on any sheet, means on any this normal sheet, the least display of mine. The least display of mind over here, he is referring to the mite only, that he is saying that least display of mind. The basic meaning of this is that how even such a tiny creature, such a tiny being whom I had first taken as a speck only, but it turned out to be such an intelligent fellow who is having a mind of its own, an individual thinking of its own intelligence. Like nobody, he feels like that nobody can even imagine how he is feeling right now, how happy he is feeling right now, because he met such a being. Now, if we talk about the basic theme, the major theme of the poem, it is, as I kept on telling you throughout the poem, that how the poet he admired the intelligence, the creative, and the imaginative powers of the mite. So, this is only the main theme of the poem, as the poet recognizes and appreciates the use of mind by such a tiny mite, a small insect, on the white sheet of his paper, and he does not kill the mite for he just thinks that he is such an intelligent creator, so why should I kill such an intelligent creature. And at the same time, he also feels that the mite does not intend any evil, and he does not know any evil of the mite, so why should he kill the mite. So these are the two reasons why he did not kill the mite. And one more reason we can also join in this answer is that he does not believe in indiscriminate love for all human beings or creatures. This is what the line, that is collectivistic regimentic love, was meaning. And he does not believe in that indiscriminate love for all human beings or creatures. And but because the mite is having its own mind, he feels like, the poet feels like, so he says that if the mite is having its own mind, the mite is having its own intelligence, so it deserves an opportunity to live. That is why he does not kill the mite. I hope that the poem was clear with you. So till next time, bye bye.